Ma'ams and sirs, welcome to the Jarrett Bellmund Show. We are located in our own homes and offices, continuing safe work processes. My goal is to assist you in your personal and professional growth by talking to community leaders like our guest, Sam Uhl. This episode is brought to you by Pro 16 Productions. Pro 16 Productions combines experience, passion, and innovation to capture the essence of your projects. Sam was born in Syracuse, New York, eventually making Hendersonville home in 2013. She owned a PR and technical writing firm in Buffalo, New York, then moved to Durham, North Carolina, specializing in designing training departments for companies. As the owner of the Cheerful Word, she believes that everyone's life is a story worth telling and helps people write their memoirs. Living and working in downtown Hendersonville with her husband, Fred Nace, Sam loves her new home. Her daughter works in the family business also as a designer. Welcome to the show, Sam.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, Jared.
It is my pleasure. So how are things going with you? Business is back up and running. I know you're a busy lady. So are you rebound? Is it flowing into a new work process? How are things going?
It is. I moved back into the office with my brand new desk that I love. It was my first new desk in my whole life. And I just love it. I feel like a queen now.
That's awesome.
It makes moving back into the office and the studio much more pleasant. So, and business slowed down just a little bit in May, early May. We were just finishing up publishing some books for private family books for families and publishing a couple of other authors. And then it seemed to dry up for a couple of weeks before it exploded. And I've signed on 4 new people in the last week and have another 6 in the pipeline. So I'm busy getting my processes in place to make sure that I meet their needs so that their experience with us is really smooth.
That's wonderful. I'm very glad to hear that. I also, I don't have a new desk, but I got new cabinets or bookshelves. And so I put those in my office, and I'm very excited to go back and have a little more organization in my office. So yeah, I feel you. And the desk is, it's an important thing, right? Like you sit at it every day and you like, that's what gets the work done. People, yeah, that's awesome. So we're going to talk stories today. Your business is the Cheerful Word, but your overarching umbrella business is Life Story Studios.
Yes.
And I can tell you and my listeners that I am not a elevator story guy. I for years I was anti-elevator story until I met you and heard. Well, I'd met you, but until I heard your theory on elevator stories and elevator pitches, and it's completely different than what. It's not completely different. It's a good, honest, intentional, purposeful push towards what an elevator speech should be. And so I want to get into, let's start there. Let's start with elevator speeches. And I want you to share that with everybody because it was impactful to me. And I think it would be impactful to a lot of my listeners.
Sure. One of the things I teach sort of on the side is a course called How to Become the Go-To Expert in Your Community. And in that, once we get into the course just a little bit, and I'll talk a little bit more about the basics of why you have to set the stage for all of this, is a 3-level elevator pitch. And I used to hate elevator pitches as well because they were dry, they were boring, they sounded inauthentic. And, you pull a cord on the back of the doll and it just spews out the same stuff every time.
That's right. Yeah.
That's really not what it's about. It's about understanding who you're speaking to and speaking to them and what their needs may be in the moment. So if you literally have, 15 seconds in an elevator, what are you going to say to somebody who looks at your name badge and just says, "The Cheerful Word, what do you do? I mean, what is a Cheerful Word?" And the most basic answer, the most simple elevator pitch is, I help people write their memoirs. And sometimes because it's an unusual business for me, and for other people to listen to, they don't know what that means. And this is when you get into sort of the second level elevator pitch, where they want to know more. And they'll say, well, what does it mean? I thought celebrities wrote memoirs. I didn't know everyday people wrote memoirs. And I said, well, I help to honor and encourage people today in writing their stories, whether it's just for themselves or for family members or to inspire the world, but it's to really leave a legacy, to really understand who you are. And then if they pause and wait for more information, then I go into the longer version, which is I really help people write their stories to honor and encourage them today and leave a legacy for tomorrow and inspire the world if they want to publish for profit, or if they want to, if there are better storytellers than they are story writers, we can also ghostwrite it on their behalf. So no matter how you come to us with story, we can help you record it and preserve it for posterity.
So you're really using like a tiered level.
Yes.
Like your first comment is really just to like get that hook in, right? Like let's just bait them and get them interested in what I'm doing. And then the second level is almost okay, that may not have been clear but it was concise. So let me give further clarity to what I do. And then if they're taking the bait and still interested, then it opens up that third level. I love that because it really takes the heart of you looking for the need of the person you're talking to, not your own need. So that's
exactly
good.
Yeah, when I say I help people write memoirs, some people go, huh, and they'll tell you exactly why they're interested or why they're not. I've had people say, why would anybody want to write my story? And if I sense that it's a genuine question, I'll ask them, do you want me to answer that for you? And they'll say, yeah, or no, I'm never going to write my story. Well, clearly they're not my people, and that's fine. And long ago, I got over the whole idea of, oh my gosh, I just lost a sale. And, you get all unnerved. And what could I said differently? But this is where coming into knowing your own story is really important before trying to tell other people what it is you can do for them and why that's important.
Yeah, I really want to get into businesses telling their own stories, but I want to make sure we finish the thought out. And I really think that having that ability to get a no from a lead, and qualify that lead in a single conversation is very important for anyone that has a business where they're trying to offer a product or have a sale. Qualifying a lead is so undervalued, from my opinion, in business today. And people just think either everybody's my client or I have this niche and I can sell to anybody in this niche. And that's not necessarily true either.
Right.
And so I think that is an amazing way to look at an elevator speech, is to say, I'm qualifying a lead so that I can care about them as a person, but may never do business with them. Or I can open up an opportunity to do business with them. But either way, it's going to be their reaction is what leads that, because I'm qualifying whether they fit into what I'm doing. That's amazing.
Yeah, and getting to that no faster helps you get to the yes, and it helps you refine your thinking and the way you speak about your business as you and practice. It's all about practicing.
And it's a cost-effective measure, right? So you're not wasting time and energy and money in a prospect that will never monetize for your business.
Exactly. It's not a failure. It's a success because you've separated the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so with businesses telling stories, how does that conversation start? Because I don't know if. No, that's true. I do know. I know most businesses struggle with telling their story and defining who they are and what they're doing. So let's start foundational level of what a business getting to that point. Because you could say, hey, you need to tell your story, but there's got to be a base, a foundation. You tell me.
Yeah, it's like, what does that mean to tell your story? And most people think about that in terms of having roles in life. Well, my role is a salesperson or a memoirist or a photo scanning person. So you think about yourself in these roles instead of like who you are and what drives you. And if you understand that better, you can help other people connect more quickly, because as a species, humans are the only ones that tell story. And when we tell story, and they're enduring stories, I mean, the things that we share with ourselves and with other people are really universal truths. And when we share those things, when we understand them within ourselves, we can connect with other people. But getting to that vulnerable point where you're willing to share something about yourself is hard for some people. And it's also difficult because most of us really don't know each other. I prided myself for years thinking, I know myself really well. I've done all this personal growth work, blah, 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 only to discover at 45 years old that, wow, I have to dig deeper because there's still things I don't know about myself because things are happening in my life. I keep drawing things into my life that aren't the most pleasant things, for my business. And why isn't it succeeding? So when I started looking at core values, and this is another thing I teach in that How to Become the Go-To Expert course, is we start talking about how to become the go-to expert by starting to define your core values. And again, these are universal: integrity, honesty, love, connection. All of these things, they sound very standard and almost trite, but you have to investigate for yourself what they are. And it took me 2 weeks to figure out what my core values were. Because some of them were wrapped up in others, and because I had to give up love as a core value because it's wrapped up in security for me. Security is my number one core value. And once you have your core values down, every decision you make comes from those core values, whether you know it or not. But once you identify what those values are, it makes it easier to have natural conversation without feeling rehearsed. And beyond the core values, you've got this idea of who else am I? Apart from my role as mother, as sister, as wife, as friend, who am I? And the way I get people out of their heads to think about that and start to build, and this all relates to business storytelling.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Is look at yourself and look at the five senses. And how would you define yourself in the five senses? What color am I? What smell am I? What fragrance am I? What smell am I?
Yeah. We all have a little worse fragrance to this work from home and alone stuff.
If I feel like something, what's my tactile sense? And all of this, when you go through it, what do I sound like? And again, that took me about a week to go through because I'd never thought about redefining myself apart from my roles in life. And it was really interesting, and it really colors the way you relax into yourself and you take the pressure off yourself to be on when you're talking to any potential customers, which really could be anyone, whether it's a referral or someone direct. It helps people know you and building that vulnerability, that transparency. And when you know yourself, and you can talk about yourself more vulnerably, people really connect. Even if it feels completely unrelated to your business, people want to know you.
Well, I think what you said earlier about the vulnerability, I think that allows an authenticity that people connect with. I really, truly believe that the stories we connect to, the people we connect to are the most authentic ones. And so if you don't get to that vulnerable state, you have nothing to build on. So I really think you have something there with what the foundation should be.
Yeah, and we've allowed culture and family and our past experiences to dictate largely who we are and who we become. I mean, they really do shape us. But at some point, we all have this transformational moment or this branching point in life where we have this aha that I really want to be empowered all on my own. I don't want to feel my mother speaking to me. I don't want to feel my old boss speaking to me. I don't want these cultural norms to dictate how I behave in the world. I want to do that. And honestly, when you know your own story, when you really, to thine own self be true kind of thing, when you know that, it's like having a magic 8-ball because you're telling yourself stories every day and refining that story that defines you and your business. And then when you know that, it predicts tomorrow because how you behave today, again, it's based on your core values, how you see yourself. The stories you tell yourself turns into the stories you tell others. And it's very predictive to be able to create your own future. And many people feel really stuck in their businesses because they don't know how to tell story, and they feel like tomorrow's going to be exactly the same as today.
A lot of that comes from them allowing what they think their business needs to be to define it, instead of it being a reflection of who they are on their business.
Exactly.
And so from a business standpoint of what you're saying is that you can say, what are the core values of my business, especially how they're reflected, and I know in small businesses like ours, it's even easier to say, I want this intentionally to be reflected into my business, whether it be the security or the love. And then I like the five senses, because you can do the same thing with your business. What does my business feel like? What does my business smell like? And I think asking those questions, it's a creative spur, right? Like it just helps you think differently about right? Because we could say, this is what I do, but that's, but I know in my business, what I do, a lot of people do, right? Across the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so my business isn't the same as everybody else's business. And that's because of me and not the tasks I do. It's how I make my business smell and taste and feel.
Right.
So that's great. I've been given the advice when searching out core values or principles to ask why 7 times. So you don't stop the question until you answer seven whys. So so with security, it'd be I want my business to be secure. Well, why? And then you answer that why, and that's usually another. And then I want to protect people. Well, why? And then you keep going down. And after 7 times of saying why to yourself, I found that usually before that, but definitely by 7, I know what's at the core of why I want security to be part of that.
Right. And it goes pretty deep. I mean, it really does connect within yourself. And it causes people to think about things that, we don't go around thinking about or reflecting on, like, in a meditation kind of thing every day. But once you understand it, I have them posted on my walls. My core values sit right there on my wall, and it's fantastic because sometimes I have to be reminded not to chase business, not to feel that scarcity moment, and to say, all right, what are my values? Why am I here? What am I in business for? And it's, oh, okay, I'm here to help the everyday person commemorate their own lives and discover how to do that and how fun it is. And it can be hard. So if I haven't gone through that transformation myself, it's hard for me to help others do the same thing. And it's true. And it doesn't have to be, a deep, talking about insurance. You can help people understand security is a big part of insurance. And, the emotional attachment to that story is really what helps people relate to you. Because people read books and watch movies for one of 2 reasons. Either they completely relate to you on some level, you've built that trust with them, or, and they want to see how you went through that experience, or it's so outside their life experience that they want to dip their toes in it and go, wow, I would never, free climb, but that was really interesting. And now I know I've learned a few things from that. But you'll never find me up on the side of a mountain.
Yeah. So I know a lot of businesses hit a point of, I think they do some of that introspective look. They may not go deep enough. They may not be purposeful in that foundation building. But the biggest thing I hear when I talk about this with creating your story with individuals is, I don't write that well. I can't. I don't create well. I wouldn't know what to really put as words. And sometimes it's too much. Sometimes it's too little. So What would you advise somebody who's struggling with actually getting if they were like, hey, I want a core value on my wall, what is that first step to help them with maybe a skill that is not their strength?
Well, something that helps both, prospective clients, prospective writers, those who just want to try writing their stories or interest in it, I ask them all the same 6 questions. What do you want to achieve? And with them, it's, what do you want to achieve with your book? And then it's, who's your audience? And this is true with business storytelling. And it brings it up a couple of levels. It gets out of the the introspection and makes it a little more practical. So it builds on that foundation of knowing yourself. So what do you want to achieve with your business? Who's your primary audience? And, helpful hint, probably your favorite audience is going to be a lot like you. You're going to attract like-minded people to yourself, and they're going to be most joyful to work with. And do you have a secondary audience? Specifically identify them, make a little avatar. What, if you were sitting across the table from them, what do they look like? Where do they shop? What kind of pets do they have? What kind of car do they drive? How do they dress? Really start to identify who your primary audience is, your customers. What do they need from you? Instead of thinking about benefits that you can provide to them, think from their terms and say, what do they need from you? And it often goes back to those core values. They need security. They need trust. They need connection. They need to know that you're going to care for them and provide them with something that they've come to you with or are curious about. And then you have to talk about, well, what's your main story? What's the main storyline here? What's your theme? And this is where you can specialize and otherwise, sort of everyday business that everyone knows about. I take my, car to have it detailed, or I take my car to have the tires changed. But what makes this company different from this company? And it's how they tell their story that makes them different. One can be, we're super efficient, we're super cheap, we'll get you in and out. And the other one will tell you, we'll take care of you and we'll listen to you, and we'll find if there's anything else wrong, we'll let you know, and you can have a choice on whether to take action on that or not. So it's all about who you want to bring in that helps you learn how to tell your story. And then you can develop your elevator pitch. Once you know that information, you can meet their needs.
I think that's amazing. I think if you're a small business owner, if you're a business leader, or if you ever want to get into business, rewind back and listen to what Sam just said and do that work. Because I think that is the hard, valuable work that needs to be done in all businesses today to ensure success.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Sam, we're going to get into, thank you for all that. That was amazing information. I really think there was tons of value in there. I hope this is one that my listeners go back and listen to 2 or 3 times, because you just dropped a ton of nuggets and a ton of actionable things that they can move forward with to help their small business or even their personal life. I know for my family during quarantine, we really spent a lot of time working on our family principles, which is not easy. And it was a lot of hard conversations, but I can tell you without a doubt that our family's coming out the other side better for it. And I am, I don't want to say I'm more hopeful, because I've always been hopeful for my family, but more hopeful that we will be even more successful as a unit and a group, which is came from defining who we are, which is exactly what you're talking about. So I ask every podcast guest the same 3 questions, and I love to hear yours. And of course, everybody has a different one that I look forward to. And the first question is the one I'm very excited to hear from you. What is the most influential book you have read in the last 6 months?
Most influential book. Down to 2. This one, well, it would have to be Whoever Tells the Best Story Wins by Annette Simmons. It really helped me focus again. I started to read it years ago, and I picked it up again about 3 months ago, and I thought, oh my goodness. And so I started highlighting. I destroy my books. I can't ever pass them on. They're dog-eared, they're highlighted, they've got notes in the margin. And she really helps me focus on storytelling for business. And it has influenced the direction of my business and helped me focus again, get rid of the extraneous stuff, have fewer services, and focus on a much more narrow audience. So that's what she's done for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, very applicable, and definitely applies to even the conversation we're having today.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely is a reflection of who you are, right? That book is definitely a reflection of who you are. Yeah. What is something in the last 6 months you've had to say no to?
Oh boy. I've had to say no to a couple of clients that I really, really wanted to help. They were quite desperate to write their stories, but unfortunately, the content of their stories was not helpful to them or their readers, and I could not convince them that revenge is not a good story. This is not a legacy to leave, and you've got to work through those emotions and those feelings. And I actually sent them both to, I suggested they perhaps see a therapist for a little while and work through those emotions until they really drilled down to the story they wanted to tell. So it was really hard to say no because they were high dollar, 6 month to a year contracts, and it was very difficult. But when I said it, they were grateful. They said, I'm glad you didn't let me do the wrong thing. And so I thought, whew, it was like a sigh of relief.
Yeah, reflecting that back on our conversation, that's the protectionist in you, right? That's your core value shining through and proving that when you lean on your core values, you can help others.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great. That's great. Yeah, that's difficult because your business could use the money, right?
Oh yeah, I know that was that little, it's like the angel and the devil. They were really arguing. They're like, just take it. You've got an editor who could deal with this. Like,
Yeah.
No, that's not me.
And it was the right thing for everybody, I'm sure. And,
yes,
and you never know how that's going to influence your business later, influence those individuals now and later. And maybe that was exactly what they needed to hear when you said it. So thank you for being true.
I've said that. I said that 6 years ago to somebody, and they came back 6 months ago and said, I had a lot of work to do, and you were right. And I mean, 6 years.
Yeah.
And they called back and they said, I have all your notes, and thank you so much. And now I'm here, and now I've got the story that I really wanted to tell. And I thought,
that's awesome.
Wow, to see that come back really paid off.
Yeah, that's special. And it motivates you to do it. I guess it motivates you to do that again and again, to stand by your principles and stand by your core values.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. The last question that I have is, if I gave you a billboard, you could write on it whatever you wanted, and millions and millions and millions of people are going to read it, what would it say?
Everyone's life is a story worth telling. I really think that I took about a year to come up with that, and I realized I had been living by it since I was a young kid, listening to these elders tell their stories. And as I grew older and wiser, I learned that everyone's life really is a story worth telling. And if you listen long enough and more patiently, they will come to the same conclusion. Even if they argue with you at first, they'll say, no, my life was too hard. It was too rough. It was too traumatic. I don't want to talk about it. I'm like, well, who did it shape you into? And that phrase, everyone's life is a story worth telling, it's like artwork. People can put themselves in that. If they're driving in a car or going by a billboard, it plants the seed, like everyone's life. First, they start thinking about all the interesting people around them. And then they start thinking, well, I have a life. I wonder what my story is. And it just sort of hangs on. No guilt, no pressure. It just plants that seed. And if it's meant to be watered and grown, it will.
Yeah, what a great way to shine light on someone's own value. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Thanks.
Well, Sam, thank you so much for having a conversation with me this morning. And I'm so appreciative of you joining on me. So appreciative of you joining me on the Jared Bellmund Show.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for watching the Jared Bellmund Show. Be sure to hit subscribe, ring the bell for future notifications, and check out the description for more information.